Okay. Good evening, good evening, good evening. How's everybody doing? Hey, Dr. Adams. Can you hear me? You on mute, Dr. Adams.
And I'm here.
There you go.
Sorry about that. How you doing? Hope everybody's doing well tonight. We're going to have a nice session tonight, a good discussion, and I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely.
Good evening, everybody. Roz McCarthy here, founder and CEO of Minorities for Medical Marijuana. We're super excited tonight. This is our third part in a series of conversations about cannabis legalization in the state of New York. We started out in Brooklyn, right, Dr. Adams? Went from Brooklyn to Long Island. And now we are talking about Albany and Westchester. And more importantly, we have lawmakers who are going to be weighing in and having a conversation and sharing their thoughts on what legalization means for the state of New York. And so we're looking at past, present, and future. This program is brought to you and supported and sponsored by GTI. And so we're super excited to have them a part of this conversation. And without further ado, I would like to introduce a young lady who has been just instrumental in supporting our efforts and working with GTI. And she wants to share a little bit of some insight about how important this moment is. So let me bring up Miss Jackie Williams. Hi, Jackie. How are you?
Hi, Roz. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So happy to see you. Jackie, you know, when I first met you, it was just phone conversation. Your excitement and energy just oozed out of the phone, and you have been just a great connection and working with GTI and the work that you do with them. And just share a little bit about, you know, GTI and their commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the importance of this moment in this conversation.
Yep. First off, I appreciate you, Roz. I think this is a divine connection because I think we have just flowed like sisters from day one. But on behalf of GTI, also under our brand name FP Wellness, it is an honor and a privilege to sponsor what you are doing, not just here in New York, but I know you do this nationally, and this is a very important endeavor that you're undertaking. And as far as economic empowerment for the Black community, you are spot on. So you have my personal dedication and commitment to supporting you, as well as GTI and FP Wellness. So with that said, on behalf of my client, Dina Rollman, who is the Senior Vice President for Government and Regulatory Affairs, and Rebecca Brown, who is the New York Marketing Representative Vice President, we say, good evening, everyone. So just a little bit about GTI, which is also properly known as Green Thumb Industries. It was founded in 2014 by our CEO, founder, and chairman, Ben Colber. GTI operates between 52 and 54 medical and adult use cannabis dispensaries throughout the country. In New York, in particular, we have 3 dispensaries, one being right here where I live in Saratoga County. It is in Clifton Park, and it's under the brand name of FP Wellness. What I'd like to tell you about GTI is that it is a people-first company. They are committed to improving people's well-being throughout the use and the power of cannabis. GTI is committed to social equity. It understands that the cannabis industry's roots are rooted in the racist war on drugs that predominantly disenfranchise Black and brown people. GTI supports a wide variety of efforts to restore those harmed through things like by supporting things like expungement clinics, We strive to create opportunities by advocating for social equity applicants to be first in line for the new licenses that New York will see. GTI is working internally to improve its record on diverse hiring, recruiting, retention, and diversifying our supply chain and service contracts. Here in New York, what I will also say about GTI is that we are looking to be a model that can help for the advancement of social equity goals that the legislature had intended. So it's our pleasure, it is our honor to work with M4MM to continue to support the work that Roz is doing, and we look forward to being a part of this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you so much. And kudos to the work you're doing. We believe that the legalization that's in New York with operators like GTI that has made a verbal and physical commitment to social equity, diversity, and inclusion is the way to start. And you are going to be a model operator that shows all the other operators in New York how to get it done. So thank you so much. We really appreciate you, and we'll talk with you soon. Thank you, Jackie.
You're welcome. Good night, all.
Thank you.
Hey, Dr. Adams, listen, we starting off right, guys. You see, again, GTI is committed to this cause, and we're so excited to have them. And so, without further ado, let's bring up our panelists this evening. And first, we'll bring up Ms. Tamika A. Coverdale. Hey, Tamika, how are you?
Good evening, everyone. How are you all?
We're great. Next, we have Honorable Corey Ellis. Mr. Ellis, good evening. How are you?
Good evening to everyone. Thank you for having me, and thank you for having this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. A conversation is so important. And last but not least, my brother from another mother who always comes in and has such great insight, Mr. Bill Hughes.
Good
Hey,
evening.
Bill.
Good evening. Yo, how you doing, Roz? It's a pleasure being with you again. Absolutely.
I'm wonderful, wonderful. Let's start with ladies first. Tamika, will you introduce yourself to everyone? Tell them about your New York roots, how you got, like, where you are in New York, what do you do in the state of New York, and how cannabis came into your life.
Okay. Well, first, I'd like to thank Dr. Adams for giving me this opportunity to come and participate in tonight's program. I always start off, and I don't want to take up too much time, but I always start off by giving honor to our First Nations brothers and sisters. We walk on their land. Those of us who are the first Africans in this country beginning before 1619, the Latinx community, as well as the AAPI community who built the railroads, we have to always give them honor and respect. So I do that, and I thank them for all that they have done for us. I'm an attorney at the Legal Aid Society of Westchester County, where my executive director is Claire Degnan. I'm actually the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, but I am a trial attorney by trade. That is what I do. That's my profession. I've been a trial attorney for over 20 some years. I reside in the great city of Mount Vernon. It is not upstate. We are right on the Bronx border for people who don't know, because sometimes people think Mount Vernon is upstate, but we are in the southern part of Westchester. Westchester has its own dynamic. So I love my community. I love what I do, how I became, or how cannabis has been a part of my life. I'm a criminal defense attorney, okay? I've been doing this for over 20 years. So, you know, this new law under murder is extremely, the MRTA is extremely important to me. It's extremely important to so many other criminal defense attorneys, because we are ready for our clients' records to be expunged, those who have the prior marijuana convictions. And we're in this to win this. My office is also going to be working on a program where we help people clean up their rap sheets. And yes, we know that prior criminal convictions for marijuana are supposed to be expunged, but we are still following up with the courts to ensure that that does happen and is happening. So that's a little bit about me right now.
Absolutely. And it's so important, the work that's being done at Legal Aid, and the example of even having expungement clinics, even a conversation of having pro bono support really started with legal aids across the country. That's the first time I heard about it and understood the concept of being able to support individuals who didn't have the means to be able to clear their records or to get out of a of a criminal or a sticky situation that involve, incarceration or jail time. So we're so happy and want your insight and your thoughts as we go along. Next, we have the Honorable Mr. Corey Ellis. Please, Mr. Ellis, please share with everyone who you are, what you do, and why is this conversation about cannabis legalization in the state of New York so important to you and your community?
Well, thank you for having me. And my name is Corey Ellis. I'm the Albany Common Council President of our City Council in the City of Albany. The legalization of cannabis became important to me a few years back when they began to talk about the legalization of cannabis. I had a number of friends of mine, family members who've been incarcerated under that law of cannabis. So they began to reach out to me and talk to me about, well, if they're going to legalize it now, I did 5 years for this, what's going to happen then? So that immediately perked up my ears, one. Two, when I heard other leaders in the Assembly and the Senate talk about making sure that this legalization of cannabis, the communities that were the most hard hit by the being illegal, making sure that those communities have an important role in this and can see some benefits to this new venture. And so for me, as the City Council President, I began to think about how do we begin to make sure that happens in our most hard hit communities. And I look at it as an economic way to start healing those same neighborhoods and those same communities, and looking at maybe some economic zones in our particular neighborhoods that were affected by these laws, and the citizens in those neighborhoods mainly are minority communities. And so that's why when I began to speak on this and see our other state elected officials began to speak out and say, we want to make sure if this is legalized, that the communities that were hardest hit and affected by the legalization of this, they began to be made whole and heal from this. So that's what encouraged me to really start beginning to look at this and look at it as an economic issue when we view cannabis, the legalization of it.
Absolutely. And we're going to come back to you because I think your point about how entities, lawmakers, community organizations who don't even touch cannabis realize that when this was going to be full throttle legal, knew that you had to step in and say, hey, we got to make sure that we take care of folks that have been most harmed. And so I want to talk about ways that we can continue doing that, because that's so key, not only in your community, but throughout the country. So Bill Hughes,
yes,
man,
ma'am.
so happy to see you. I know your story. Dr. Adams knows your story, but people don't know who you are. So please take a second, share with everyone this native New Yorker, who you are, what you do, and how your connection came into what's your connection to the cannabis industry?
Yes, ma'am. So it's an honor, absolutely an honor, Roz. It's always a pleasure to serve on this committee. I know the hard work that you and Dr. Adams and M4MM have been doing throughout this nation, fighting for social equity. And that's where my crux is. I was born and raised in the city of Hudson, New York. I'm currently in Hudson, New York right now. I served 4 years on the city council. I then served 10 years as a county legislator, and then as a New York State Democratic committeeman with my brother, Corey Ellis. And what really got me involved in cannabis, while I was a legislator, I really fought on a lot of social justice issues. But as you saw, like in some of our local jails, and I'm sure my brother Corey Ellis can speak to this, is a lot of times when we would talk to our sheriff and you would say, well, 85% of my population is in here for a drug offense.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were doing a lot of local arrests around, illicit drugs and with marijuana being the predominant. And on top of that, most of those people were people from our communities that look like me. And so, once my career was over as a legislator, I was like, you know what? I think I can get into the cannabis business, run a really good business, but also do some really good things in social justice issues and social equity. Some of the work that I was doing when I was a legislator, I think I could bring that to the cannabis space.
Yeah, yeah, and hopefully change the dynamics, and also forecast ways that we can maybe change the way the trajectory of the industry is going, and also being able to make sure that we are reducing the harm that's been caused on those communities that are disproportionately impacted. So so happy to have you, Bill. Your insight is invaluable. Because now, talk about your business right now, Bill. What do you do? Like your business, you have your own company that's in the cannabis industry, correct?
No, so we're actually going to be like everybody else in the licensing process for New York and New Jersey. But
Sure.
my company is called Tiva Growth, and so we now are a fully pretty much built out team. But my partner is Latino, and his expertise is really in the tech sector, and he's really known for building some of the country's best tech incubators.
Yeah.
So we're kind of excited about having him on my team, because hopefully we get licensed, and we can now start, outside of us working on our license, we can start applying some of his skills into social equity programs, if not having our own program, helping New York move forward with their programs. We definitely want to help in any way, shape, or form. And just so it was great to have that you brought GTI up here, which is the Green Thumb Industries. It's good to see multi-state operators like them stepping up, because within our business plan, and we hope that other businesses did this, we wrote, we know that there's a portion of tax that's going to go to the state and a portion of tax that's going to go to the local municipalities. But on top of that, we wrote into our business plan a percentage of our revenue that would go back into the communities that was harmed by the war on drugs. And I will be the community outreach person for my company. So, I have a deep knowledge of working with reentry and working with educational programs and a lot of the social justice programs. So we're going to use our company to not only, build a good business, but we're going to use it to build a community as well.
That's excellent. So let me go back and set the room. So we're really talking about past, present, and future, right? Mm-hmm. And so first and foremost, we got a lot of folks out here. If you guys are here and you're with us live and you were talking about New York, we see people from Mississippi and from Baltimore. The conversation we're having about New York is not far from the same situation that you're dealing with in your city and your town. And so we want to make sure that a lot of the conversation we're having is going to be applicable. And so, Tamika, I would love for you to set the foundation, talk about just from a lawyer's perspective, when we talk about the harm, like we really have seen harm really face Black and brown communities when it came to this illegal product prior to legalization on the medical side. Can you just give maybe just an overview or just a kind of square up how much it affected our communities?
Thank you. Thank you so very much. It's impacted and affected our communities to such an extent that so many people in the community, people you wouldn't even know, have these marijuana convictions on their records. And what that does is it hinders them from becoming productive members of society. And that's what we really want. We want people to become productive members of society. However, with these convictions, and I would be in court day in and day out, and I would see people pleading guilty to these charges, and it would ruin them. It would really ruin them. Then you would go to other communities, because I work in Westchester. Westchester, we have so many towns, villages, and cities. It's not like Long Island where there may be a district court. We go to different courts. So you may be in a court in the upper part of the county and get one offer. And then when you're down in the lower part of the county, get another offer if you look differently. Let's just put it out there. There are many people who are arrested for marijuana and they do not have convictions for marijuana. But those who actually have the convictions for marijuana, they now know that, well, New York has done something great. And this is great what is going on. I personally know people who, not just clients, but colleagues, for example, who have marijuana convictions on their rap sheets. And now what's going to happen is that will be expunged. So it is major. But we have to stay on the Office of Court Administration. That's the office that is the head basically of those city courts, not the towns and villages, but the city courts.
Yes.
I placed a call today, as a matter of fact, to a clerk to see, has this actually been happening now? And I did not receive an answer. So a stark contrast from before to now. But I also, and I hope I'm not moving around too much, but I believe that there should be equity in these licenses. But I must be honest, and I'm not a Debbie Downer, never have been a Debbie Downer. But the way I view it, I don't believe that the people in the community, the people who have actually been impacted, are going to be able to afford these licenses. I just don't see it, because I believe that the application alone, you will initially probably, like a liquor license or the medical marijuana, initially a $10,000 non-refundable fee. $10,000. Who in the community, those who are actually impacted, have that? Then it's like $100,000 to $200,000. Who has that money? And that's not even the structure that we're talking about where your sell this. So it sounds good. And I think the people in the community really got caught up in thinking, oh, I can have a business. I don't see it that way. I think if you are of means, you can have the business. And I think it's great that people from the community, will be hired, because you have to have a certain number of the community hired.
Yeah, but
I don't know how. I'm sorry.
Hiring is not equity. No, I was going to say hiring is not equity. Hiring is you working for someone.
Right.
Equity, ownership, right?
Exactly. And that's why I don't see this, and some may disagree with me, I don't see this as equity for people who are really or have really been impacted.
Yeah. So, my sister, I don't want to disagree. But when we get to that point, Ra, I do have some facts and some information I could put out there for the people that could actually show that there is some real movement in New York State. Well, I think we're going to be different.
Okay. Well, hold on to that thought, because I want to go to Mr. Ellis. Mr. Ellis, you're in Albany, and in your role, and you've seen your community in the outskirts area or what have you. What committed you from a lawmaker perspective, but from just someone that cares about your community? What made you say, I'm going to put a bone into the fight in this and make sure that we have opportunity in this industry as we know it's going to be a booming industry for the state of New York?
Well, that's with anything economically in this country, right? You have to get in on the ground floor, right?
Yes.
Once you get so in our communities, we're not usually at the table. We don't usually have access to the information, and we don't usually have people coming to us and saying, hey, this is how it can impact you. This is the opportunities that are there for you. So now that we're at this stage, we have to have our leaders in our community being that voice. I'm at the table. This is the economic opportunities for you. And then allowing our electeds like myself, because in Albany is we're Democrats up here, but we have a number of conservative Democrats. And so we have to begin to work with other Black organizations like our Upstate Black Chamber of Commerce to start educating not just our community, but also educating the city of Albany, what the potential of the economic impact, positive impact it can happen for our city, but also the positive impact, if it's done the correct way, that can have a positive impact in our most challenged neighborhoods. And so when you look at it as a lawmaker, you have to look at it, how do we make sure that it is equitable? Yes. And what type of, for lack of a better word, I'm looking at what type of economic zones that we can create where cannabis may be bought and sold that make sure it impacts those neighborhoods and can help that neighborhood grow. So those are the things I'm learning a lot, yes. And I want to figure out how do we make sure that we do have an economic impact, but economic growth in our communities that we definitely need. And I think being in our underground floor and having these conversations and getting the information out like you guys have been doing, and thank you so much for this. I think that's the way we begin to make sure that we're not left behind and we're on the ground floor of this cannabis.
And when we go to your points are so on point, and especially when we can talk about the economic impact that can be made for individuals. Not everyone that's social equity that's been harmed wants to get in the cannabis industry. And Bill, when we talk about this, I think as we talk about the dollars that'll come down, there's an opportunity to be able to support individuals that have been harmed. They don't want to be a license holder. They don't want to be an operator. They may have a security business. They may have some other type of business that they really need us to feed into. Dr. Adams, I want to bring you in on this because this is something that I think is critical, and it brings us to present day. We hear operators like GTI, who's a great partner with M4MM, and their commitment. How important, from your perspective, being a business owner in New York, having an operator that's licensed and that also will have an opportunity to have license on the adult use side to say, hey, Dr. Adams, we want to do business with you?
I think it's fantastic. I'm the CEO of Antigen Botanical CBD, as well as the New York State Director of M4MM. But one thing that runs through, is a thread running through all of what we're saying right now, is giving this social equity, but actually delivering it. Like making it hit the street for people. And the reality is that not everybody with a marijuana conviction is ready to be a CEO or whatever of a company. We need the ongoing training and support from people within the industry. And, the multi-state operators, the bigger cannabis industry companies, they catch a lot of flack. I mean, you can have some debates whether rightfully so or not, but if they can actually step up and really deliver and help with the business mentoring and training and things like that, then that can help make this real.
No, I think your point is spot on. Bill, you got it. So Bill, you got maybe some secret sauce or something that we don't know, or just maybe the momentum and the energy of some of the different business entities who already are setting themselves up to go after a license. Talk about what that looks like and what's the undercurrent of our Black and brown entrepreneurs who are possibly getting themselves set up in a position to be able to compete and win a license.
Absolutely. So Rod, what I've been telling people who don't live in New York State, I said there was all the rest, and New York State has CPS, which is Crystal Peoples-Stokes. So
yes.
If people don't know who Crystal Peoples-Stokes is, you go Google her and look her up.
Amen.
She's one of the reasons why we have this current law that we have in New York State right now with a social equity component. Her and Liz Kruger and also Andrea Stewart and our speaker Hastings. We have a policy in New York that is unprecedented right now. Now they have to act on it. And so talking to the people behind the scenes who are doing the planning, I can assure you that the conversations are being had and taken seriously. And here's some of the secret sauce, and people, you want to take notes of this. So when it comes to licensing, what they did for our adult use marijuana licensing process is they made sure that there was no vertical integration, which means you can't hold a license in every category. So you're going to have to pick a category and go for a license in that one category, whether it's cultivation, processing, delivery, manufacturing, wholesaling, or retail. You cannot hold a license in cultivation and retail. So that's first thing. But before you even get there, which is actually the process I just went through, that is team building. There is no one person that is going to build a company and do it himself or herself in cannabis. That is too heavily regulated. The rules and regulations and the cost is it's a lot. It's enormous. So you need to build a team. You need to understand where you want to go. What category do you think you would want to be in? So you need to be you need to think about that right now. And get to that point, and you know what license you want to pursue. Then now you need to start. If you're social equity, you need to start now paying attention to what New York State is offering. They have a website, which is Office of Cannabis Management. You could Google it. It's up right now. They have an Office of Cannabis Management website they are looking to set up 3 offices within New York State. One is going to be downstate New York, one is going to be in the Albany region, and the other one is going to be in the Buffalo, Western New York region. And in those offices, you're going to have a minority cannabis person that is solely responsible to make sure that the taxes that are reaped by this are, you know, going to the communities that were harmed by the war on drugs, but also during licensure, which would be overseen by the Cannabis Control Board. They're going to make sure that the licensure, 50% of the license that is supposed to be available, that's the goal. 50% of the license that are available will go to social equity teams. And so the Cannabis Control Board, along with that minority person, is really gonna control that. Now, for those who may not be educated, that doesn't have the background to qualify to get a license right now, or who are a little nervous, hey, I don't have the wherewithal to do this. New York State is currently under the process of building incubators and an educational program, and they don't have that laid out as of right now. But that isn't the intention for them to build incubators, and I don't know if they're going to do them regional or not. But with that incubator is, you will go in there and you will learn basically, I'm assuming, just the basic business foundation, and then how to actually go through the license process, right? And how to get a license. And then there will be a second step to actually support you after that. Now, once you get your license, New York State is then setting aside funds that is going to be provided, and I'm thinking they're saying it's going to be provided by the medical companies so they can participate in the market. Those funds will provide low interest loans and grants to social equity teams who qualify to actually get into business. This is after you have gone through the incubator. This is after you have now proven that you are ready to get a license. You get your license, and you're now ready to stand up a business. You will then now be able to go in and apply for those funds. So New York is really committed to this, and they're trying to do it, taking all the good pieces from all the states out there that really tried to do a social equity component. I can tell you some really committed people in New York. But what it really is going to, you can have the legislators put that in place, but it's going to take people like our brother Corey Ellis here, who are the legislators, to make sure that when companies come into their area that are looking to move in, that they're holding them to some of these social equity standards.
Yes. Isn't there, Bill, a piece of the legislation that says that if you're a current operator, you are granted maybe 4 more retail establishments, but 2 of them have to be in an impacted area?
Right. So what they did is they allowed them 2 additional medical stores, which would have to be in impacted areas. They would also allow them 3 additional stores for the adult use market. They could either have them co-located with medical and adult, or they can create 3 additional adult stores.
Fantastic. Tamika, we had a conversation 2 weeks ago with Long Island. That was our episode number 2. And one thing that came up quite a bit was the fact that a lot of the Long Islanders and some of the county and the local officials are looking to opt out. What's the what are you hearing the same thing in Westchester? Give me a little bit of what you're hearing from the. I know that the Westchester is broken up in villages. Remind me how it's broken up, and what do you hear out there right now?
We have cities, towns, and villages. Our cities are Yonkers, Mount Vernon, New Rochelle. The cities, yes, they're not opting out for the most part, but you have towns and villages who they don't necessarily want it, but I believe that they will start rethinking because, for example, I'm here in Mount Vernon. Pelham, the village of Pelham is right around the corner from me. So they can just come to Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon will receive that money. So I think when these villages really start thinking about it, they'll say, oh no, we want that money. We don't want the city of Mount Vernon, which is 85% Black, to have that money. Okay, we want some of that money as well. So yes, they have the opt out, but it's primarily the cities, that will go ahead with it in the
So
town.
That's one reason why I actually like that there's politicians here tonight, and that hopefully there's some out there listening that you really can't duck it. You can't dodge it. The only thing you can do is give up control of how it happens in your locality. Because right next door to you is going to be perhaps a multi-state operator. There's going to be delivery services. It's going to be where you are. The only question is, are you going to want to set your own rules and zoning and any other kind of regulations you might want, or are you just going to let everybody else dictate it to you and get no money?
So
is anyone scared here? Bill, go ahead. You go first, Bill. I'm going to ask you a question. Go for it, Bill.
So opting out is not going to be as totally easy as some of the municipalities think. Like some of the governments, really conservative, thinking that they're opt out and it's done. Well, New York State again is being unique about this. They're allowing permissive referendums, and I'm sure my brother Corey Ellis knows that is. So even if you opt out, let's say you're in a city or a town. They can get 10% of the population to sign a petition, put that on the ballot for a permissive referendum, and have a public vote, and then make it legal in that part of the town. Anyway, villages are a little different. Villages too can have a permissive referendum, but you would need 20% of the voting population in a village.
Yeah. And I was going to ask, are your villages, and not trying to make it a color thing, but in Westchester, Tamika, are the villages more European white Caucasian families versus the cities? And is that the case? And if it is, let's not forget that white folks smoke just as the rates of consuming are the same. So you are going to have that money, and they don't mind coming to the city to get their cannabis and take it back. Right. Your thoughts?
So you are correct in terms of the breakdown, the racial ethnic breakdown. Our towns and villages are more European. I mean, there are Latinx people who live in those towns and villages, but for the most part, the Black community lives in the cities and more of the cities. But you also have to think about this, and this is a little off topic, but also on topic. You have methadone clinics, for example. Methadone clinics here in Westchester, they're in the cities. And like you said, that is not to say that Caucasians don't use or are not on methadone. They just don't have a clinic within that town or village, and then they come to the cities to do that. So, I mean, I understand the whole referendum, but I also know these communities, these towns and villages, and I don't see them jumping on board, but maybe they will. Maybe they will.
Yeah. Bill, you're laughing. What's your thoughts? Corey, your thoughts as well?
I didn't think of it from the methadone part, but she's right. You know, if you're going to have those kind of clinics, I can't see you now coming up and banning something that really is a plant. But not only that, going more importantly to what Dr. Adams said is the revenue is going to be really tremendous. And the way New York State did it is 9% will go to the state. You're going to have 4% that will go to local municipalities, 1% to the county, and 3% will go directly to the community in which that business is located. So if you put a business in Albany and it generates $10 million, 3% of that tax revenue goes directly to Albany.
But who manages that 3%? And how do we make sure that? And how do we make sure that we're not having money from one budget erased or moved in order to then slide money into? I mean, because people do some funny math sometimes.
Well, here's the math that New York has right now. It's 40% of the revenue, and you can thank Crystal People-Stokes and Andrea Stewart-Cousins. 40% of the 9% that is going to go to the state is going to go to the communities that was harmed by the war on drugs. And again, that diversity person along with the Cannabis Control Board is going to oversee that. 40% is going to go to education, and 20% is going to go to programs like our reentries and things of that nature. When it comes to the 3%, that goes to the town, that goes to that municipality's general fund. can do whatever they want with it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And this is where the constituents that live in the townships, your responsibility, and you have to make sure you hold the folks that are responsible for those funds and dispersing and the issues and the needs, hold them accountable, in my estimation. I think.
Brother Ellis.
Brother Ellis, what your thoughts are? I mean, we talk about the management of it once, let's assume that we're going to have this new revenue that has not been accounted for. Can we trust our local folks to do the right thing with it? And how do people that are listening and make sure that they're holding those folks accountable?
Well, I think for our area, Albany County, majority of residents in Albany County are white. And so, I've had conversations with people about the county possibly opting out. We don't know will that happen. But being in the municipality, the city of Albany, we want to move forward with this because once again, we see it as an opportunity. Our city is $12.5 million regularly in the hole. So we cannot turn down this opportunity that the state has granted us. We cannot turn down the possibility of funds that are needed. And also, we cannot provide the equitable resources that we need in this city because we passed the equity agenda 2 years ago in our city. And to make sure that equity agenda is fulfilled in a real way, we need new resources and we need new flow of money. And this is an opportunity for that. So we as legislators have to make sure that we stand up for this and we make sure that the money flows the correct places and do everything that we need to do to make sure that the equity agenda continues to be fulfilled in the city of Albany.
And there's actually a few things where you're going to hear pushback. And for one thing, it's not rocket science to think that if all the towns around you are allowing this and a regulated business around them, well, the unregulated purveyors of cannabis, where's the market now?
Mm-hmm.
It's where there's no stores. So that's one aspect. But I come from this from a medical standpoint, and I saw many patients getting a lot of benefit from CBD and THC and all the cannabis products. And so many of them were so bad that's why I made some. But one thing I've noticed, because I do sell to a lot of physicians, that is getting nowhere near enough discussion, is that it is not a gateway drug. It's actually an off-ramp. Because when you are trying to pull, everybody can agree and everybody will be all for removing opioids, but you can't pull an opioid from somebody who's actually in pain without replacing it with something. And that is one major tool that marijuana brings to the medical conversation. So the gateway drug is, you hear it day in and day out, but I think some people just need to have their eyes open to the fact that, oh yeah, well, without an alternative for their pain, they're going to be driven back. It's not rocket science.
Dr. Adams, I'm so glad you said that. I mean, because that is so important. That is the educational piece. People forget about the medical benefits of cannabis. And when we forget that, I think when we start educating people on that and having that access to that cannabis for medical purposes near communities that need it and people that need it, I mean, it plays a huge role. And so thank you so much for bringing that up, because I think we forget that at times.
That's a good one. That's a good one to keep in your pocket when you go to the council meeting.
I'm going to keep it there. Absolutely.
And listen, you was reading my mind, because I was getting ready to pose a question to all of you guys and asking you, how do we make sure that New York's legal program, adult use program, doesn't cannibalize the medical program? Because the medical program, if we were to be honest, it really needs to be some reforming, to be honest with you. It needs more medical conditions, more access points. We can reduce the card, maybe have, personal use plans for caregivers. There's a lot of things that could improve the medical program. But how do we make sure that the big boom about it's adult use and we're going to give out these new licenses, how do we make sure that the individuals that we need to be educating on the medical side, that we don't lose sight of those folks?
So, Roz, I think, you like us, we're pursuing an adult cannabis license, and we hope to do retail in New York. But at this point, we're not looking to be a medical dispensary. So if someone were to walk into our business, we will have the expertise to recommend products to them. But really, you would want to make sure you send them to the people that is doing that work. So hopefully there's some kind of collaborative work down the line between the adult. I mean, some of them are already going to be in the adult industry anyway. So if they were to collaborate with some of the companies that aren't doing medical, and we could recommend patients to them, and they can tell us about different products, and we can share information. I think it'd be a big benefit in New York.
Yeah, I do too. And let me tell you something. I'm gonna plant a seed. My background was healthcare management in the pharmaceutical industry, and working in end-of-life care and home care, what have you. And let me tell you something. Medicare benefits, Medicaid benefits, when you have legalization that happens at the federal level, people's minds will start to change when it comes to the medical side, because now you have the opportunity of having someone's products on the cannabis side being having insurance to pay for it. And people don't understand how if you have a payer source, how that will change the gray market, because now people will say, hey, I'll use my Medicaid benefits, I'll use my Medicare benefits. And it's not just consuming flower, it's for topicals, it's for tinctures, it's for pills, it's for suppositories, it's everything that the medical aspect of this industry can present itself. So I think your comments are spot on. Yep. So listen, as we start to wrap up and we talked about past, we talked about present, the future of legalization in New York and the promise of legalization. Really, Tamika, one thing that you talked about initially was expungements. And one thing about expungements that I'm concerned about, and I'm actually in LA today, California has an automatic expungement bill. However, due to lack of systems being connected, due to people not knowing about it, people still need to have forms where you get them to come around and say, let me look at your rap sheet. Let me see if you have charges that qualify, so that we can either expedite your expungement or get your stuff in front of the right people quicker. Do you think we have to do something similar like that in New York? Because I know New Jersey systems are not talking to one another. Your thoughts, Tamika, on the
Yes.
promise in the future of from a social justice perspective?
Thank you so much for bringing that up. As was stated earlier, the expungement for marijuana specifically is supposed to be automatic. But my office, the Legal Aid Society of Westchester, no one pays for our services. We represent the indigent. And when it comes to these expungement, people will just be coming into our office, and we'll be going over that with them. We have a Know Your Rights forum that is coming up on June the 25th. As well, Friday, June the 25th. So we'll discuss that as well. But this will have to be constant. This will have to be continuous, so that people know, okay, those convictions are supposed to be expunged. But like I stated earlier, as attorneys, it is my job, it is my duty to stay on the Office of Court Administration and these local courts to ensure that these convictions are actually being expunged. And there are other convictions that it's possible to get sealed. And we will be going over that as well. It's extremely important, because when you educate the community, then the community is in a better position to know their rights and know what they can do. And, they'll just be in a better position. And that also means, okay, so if I had this marijuana conviction, what about those warrants on my rap sheet that also would be incorrect? So yes, that will also take place, and my office is going to be doing big things regarding that as well. So we're on board to, with this expungement all the way through. It's major.
Can I make a commitment that M4MM, we're going to come to New York and do some joint expungement programming together, because that is something that we're committed. We have supporters that are helping us. to defray some of those costs. So that's the future of, because I'm gonna tell you right now, just because the law says it's automatic expungement doesn't deem it so. And we have to make sure people know their rights and also give them the resources to be able to follow up and push to get it cleared. And then one thing that we do with our expungement clinic is the wraparound services. So sometimes just doing that and dropping folks, there's other things that need to be addressed. So thank you so much for, your thoughts on that. Absolutely. The future of cannabis, Bill, what the future of legalization in New York, your thoughts, where do you think, if you had a crystal ball, what do you see?
So I've been telling people for a long time, because I've been looking at the other markets, Illinois, California, Washington, and I've been telling people this, and I'm sticking by it. New York is going to be the most important entry into the legal cannabis market of all the states, possibly the most important location in the world. We changed the finance industry, we changed the fashion industry, and New York is going to change the cannabis industry. New York is projected to be a $4 billion revenue generating state. I believe that number is low. New York is going to create 60,000 jobs. I believe that number is going to be low as well. Not everyone is going to want to be an owner. Some people are going to want to be employees, and you already have top-notch universities like Syracuse. You could go in there and check them right now. That is going to be offering a cannabis program. I believe this fall. You also have some that I know of, some community colleges that are looking to doing the same. So when it comes to employment, you're going to have plenty of opportunities, and not everyone is going to be in the cannabis industry. People need to think about the jars that you put the cannabis in. You're going to have innovation that comes around that out of our colleges, the packaging, the labeling, delivery service, all of these things. You're going to start to see the economic impact in New York State is going to be tremendous. And that's going to be a real benefit, again, for like our communities and our elected leaders. That they may have a little extra money in their coffers where they can really get down into the communities that were affected by the war on drugs, and not just focus on education. Now we can start looking at employment training. We can start looking at housing issues. Let's put that money to where some real good could be done, instead of trying to focus it all on cannabis-driven issues. I see a lot of real positives coming out of this if New York does it right.
No, I love it. I love
it. Bill's on fire tonight.
He's on fire. I mean, but his points are great. But the point is that trying to make sure you do it right. Because we've seen the state of Illinois where there's some good people over there and who really were trying to get it right. However, it went off the tracks, and they're trying to get it back on the track. And so, I mean, it can go off the track. It only takes a little bit, and being able to prognosticate the things that could happen to get it off the track. We're praying that the commission that set forth in New York, have they created the commission yet? Have they chosen the executive director for the commission and how that's going to be set up yet, Bill?
So the goal is to have the Office of Cannabis Management and the control board done by June, because the timeline is
Well, we're in June now, brother. By the end of June.
June. So they have soon, because then they want to write the rules and regulations. And to Brother Ellis, I don't believe counties in this particular bill have an avenue to opt out. It's to town, villages, and cities. And that date is December 31st. And if they do nothing, you're automatically in. So in order to get to opt out, you have to actually do it by law. Yeah. And so you have December 31st, and then after, from what I'm hearing, is they want to wait a month or two after towns have decided whether they want to opt out, which is December 31st. Then soon thereafter, you will have the RFA, which is request for applications. People will be able to submit their applications for licensing, which is probably January, February. That's the timeline. Now, whether they can stick to that or not, that's the goal, though.
Yeah. Do you think is it too early?
Just to mention though about regulations and rights and things, I don't want to forget tonight to speak to the councilman and say that when you are saying yes to these companies and bringing them in, what I really like to see is some strings attached. there needs to be real jobs for minorities to come in, not just at the low end, but actually they need to have a certain set of requirements in order to do business in Albany, let's say, and to help hold feet to fire, because not everybody's a GTI.
Yeah, not everybody's a GTI. God bless GTI. Mr. Ellis, you on mute.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
That's
Some
okay.
people would call that, you have people come in a community benefits agreement. How does a community benefit from your company coming in? And I think that's the angle, and you look at the amount of dollars and jobs, not just jobs, but the amount of dollars that they can be spending in that community, making sure that community benefits. And it doesn't have to be it could be community, giving resources to those other local small businesses, helping them to grow. And so what you're talking about is a community benefits agreement.
Oh, absolutely. So the word of the day, or the phrase of the day, is community benefit agreement, right? Because that not only is that applicable to New York, everybody that's listening to us in Baltimore and Mississippi, and God bless Mississippi, y'all got a mess going on, but we keep y'all in our prayers with all that stuff that's going on. But all those folks, when you have folks that are coming into your city, your town, your municipality, doing a community benefit agreement and holding them to the fire to that is so key and so important. So thank you so much, Mr. Ellis, for that was my aha. I'm like, I forgot about that. So that was on point. Absolutely. Dr. Adams, the promise of future, like, what does your crystal ball say in regards to what in your gut, in your belly, what are you thinking the future of legalization could look like for New York?
I think New York's going to be a model. I mean, it's literally the biggest cannabis market in the world. And the rules that have been written so far, they come a long way. They're much further ahead than other states that have tried to do a rollout. But like you said, there are areas of the program that need a lot of work, and one of which is the medical side. Yes. I think once they start to expand, and that's part of the problem. You had large companies with licensing here. They've been here for years now. And I think the total number of cards is like 200,000 or something like that. It's the market isn't big enough. The tent isn't big enough. They want more players to come in. So you're going to see the medical expand. And when you do that, you're going to see the medical community expand in their acceptance, because that's a large part of it right now too, is that you can go in to a specialist and, there isn't even a drop down in that little EMR they're typing in. There isn't even a selection in a lot of them for cannabis. Yeah, okay, so they tell people to get off it. So I think you're going to see the acceptance and the medical use of it. Everything's just going to grow. It's going to grow in every way, shape, or form, and it has the ability to be transformational as long as these last few steps, like even that community benefit agreement, right? That's something that actually gets the lofty laws that have been written actually down to the street. Mm-hmm. That's what we need to make sure right now, is that we actually make this stuff work for the average American.
Yeah, no, 100%. The last thought I want to, and I would love to hear from all of you guys. What do we do in regards to responsible consumption and also protecting our youth? Do we do anything out of the ordinary? Or we look at it like, as parents, like we teach our kids about, not consuming liquor? Is there a responsibility of the industry to talk about consuming responsibly and protecting our youth?
Yeah, you can have that, but 80 to 90% of all students, I don't care what study you look at, already have access to it. What have the ability to access are products that are mystery products. You have no idea what's in that bag. They're incredibly dangerous. You are much better off having a regulated product. And same thing goes for if you have your surgery, or the kid's grandmother has surgery for their hip. What's going to be left over in the cabinet? Would you rather have OxyContin in the cabinet, or would you rather have a little bit of weed?
Yeah.
So, Sister Ross, that's exactly why having a company like ours, where we were part of the minority community that was affected by the war on drugs, so we know how this affected our community, and someone like me, whether I'm bringing financial resources or just straight knowledge, I have no problem with walking down the community. I know the agencies in a lot of these communities upstate that like you have a lot of promised neighborhoods, educational zones. You have boys and girls clubs. You go there and you have conversations with them, because we want to have a thriving business, but we definitely don't want to have a thriving business where it affects our youth. People are still into their cognitive development, and this is, they call it recreational for a reason. It's like alcohol. You know, you want to come home and have a drink, or you want to come home and have a smoke and relax after a hard day of work. We support that. What we don't support is the youth use by our youth. We want to see them come to the development ages, and when they become an adult, maybe they can partake.
And I think there's an important part of also understanding and reminding not only youth, but just again reminding everyone, but youth in particular, that there is a medical aspect to this plant. And
Amen.
so when you talk about, you talk about after work, or we talk about stress relief, they come home after work, and because maybe the job was so stressful that this is your relief. And so again, when you talk about wellness and feeling better, it all has a medical connotation that we should a spotlight and respect. So that's just my thoughts.
Can I jump in a little bit?
Yeah.
Thank you. Because I do what I do, and I'm in court a lot, and we now will have what's called an emerging adult part, and that's for individuals who are 18 up to 25. Now we understand that under our new laws, those who are 21 and up, it's fine. Smoke. I never tell a client, stop what you're doing. But when it's an issue, when you can't do anything without doing that, I see that as a problem. However, I've asked the courts, well, now that marijuana is legal here in the state of New York, you can't have people go into a program. You can't have people go into a program because they smoke marijuana. If you are on probation and parole, your officers can't now tell you, oh, well, you can't smoke, unless it's a condition. Unless that is a condition, it's a parole or probation condition. So, that's major. And the judges, they looked at me like, Tamika has a point, but we still want to put this here. I said, but you can't. If this person is this age, you cannot put that condition there. And then my comeback to my younger clients is, yes, so now you can smoke. However, that job that you want, they don't have to keep you or hire you because of that. So it's almost as if it's a catch-22. Yes, you can smoke, but I don't have to hire you, do I? Or keep you because you smoke. So these are things that the younger people will have to be cognizant of. And
that brings me to something I was thinking about the other day, is that there needs to be a national sort of education about dosing. States and state laws and all these other, states that are trying to do this, they're really not going to be the ones that are going to come out with the ways to help people figure out what their dose is, what the right product is for them. And that's where I really would like to impress upon the GTIs and everybody else in the industry that are big players to actually come up with a way, not actually have them, but anyway, come up with a way where people are going to know what is for them, what is right for them. There's people driving around on Oxycontin, Xanax, all kinds of stuff right now. But why are they able to do it? Because they're at the right dose for them. If all of us went out for a drink and we just said, give us a drink, and we didn't know what was in it, and we all got different kinds of things, it would be no surprise that somebody's going to have a bad experience that night. And similarly, you have to learn that about cannabis. It's all about dosing. It's not, people tend to talk about this, and you hear this, Councilman, when you go to your meetings, people's mindset is that you're either not high or you're obliterated.
Yep.
There really isn't a lot of thought given to degree.
We're getting to that sweet spot, to that place where, Man, you guys, we have covered so much today. We talked about the past, present, and the future. the AHA was the community benefit agreement. So thank you, Mr. Ellis, for that, for letting everybody remember that operators that are coming into your city, state, township, village, I don't care what it is, hold them to the fire. You want a community benefit agreement with teeth, and you want to make sure that you hold folks accountable. Tamika, Mr. Honorable, Mr. Corey Ellis, and then also Mr. Bill Hughes, and of course, Dr. Adams, thank you so much for giving your time tonight. You'll be surprised how many people will see this, they will review it again, and be able to gain insight and knowledge, not only for New York, but for other different states. And so it's so key and important, and we appreciate you so much for being on. Guys, man, this is it, man. We've had a great conversation, been talking about the state of New York. Our next area, our last in the series is going to be Rochester. So we got about 2 weeks, 2.5 more weeks, and we're going to talk about the city of Rochester and the opportunity and what it means and how we can make sure that this industry is open for everyone and that there's a diversity, equity, and inclusion everywhere. So with that being said, I want to thank GTI for your loving support, for being able to see our vision, not trying to tell us what to do, but basically listening and saying, what do you need, Roz? What do you need, M4MM? How can we help? That stuff matters. You don't understand how much it matters. And GTI, we appreciate you. You guys, make sure you check out m4mmunited.org, our website. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at M4MM United. We got a program coming up on Friday, 3 p.m., First Fridays, talking about supplier diversity. So join us. Make sure you come in, stay connected with us. We appreciate you. We love you, and have a good night. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.